Hello, everybody. Ever think you were related to royalty? I'm going to walk you through an amazing discovery and show you how I got there, which relates the Goleman family through our ancestry to the royal families of England. Let me share my screen here, and I will walk you through exactly how we get to this guy. And I'll talk about who he is and how we are related back through our family tree. So I'm going to start with this view, and here I am in the middle. And remember last time we talked about John, or actually we talked about Christian Bear. So this time we're back on the John Leslie Goleman side, his mother Emma Louise, and her mother Mary Jane Schofield. This is the oldest picture that I have of the Golemans. And this is the only picture I have of Emma, John Leslie's mother. And this is where this started. So this picture was taken in 1890. And it's interesting for several reasons. So my dad had written on the back of it that it was from 1890. And this is Emma standing next to her mother, Mary Jane Schofield. And I'm struck by several things. First of all, there are not very many pictures from back then, especially of people who were not in politics or, famous for some reason. It was just not a common practice to have family portraits taken. It looked like Mary Jane's husband had died the year before, and the year after, Emma was married to Hamilton. So I don't know if Emma was the youngest of the children. Mary Jane might have been very close to her. They're both very dressed up. I didn't think it was an engagement picture because Hamilton's not in it. And so, I don't know, there's a lot of very interesting questions. Dad thought that Mary Jane Schofield was from back east and that she had moved out from New York City, was sort of a very high society woman, very connected. And he suspected that she came from a family of wealth and privilege. And so I thought she was very interesting from that point of view, and that I would dig into try and find out more. So let's take Mary Jane Schofield and put her at the center of the picture here and see sort of how her ancestry plays out on both sides. So the first thing I did was I went through her mother's side, and I couldn't get very far back. Actually, you might consider 1700s to be pretty far back, but I mostly focused on her father's side, Jared Schofield, and came across this line, the Hotchkiss family. And the Hotchkiss family, well, you can see Jared was from Delaware. And when I went through the Hotchkiss family, they were from Connecticut and had been in Connecticut for a very long time, it looks like. Let me move this over. Jonah Hotchkiss was from New Haven, Wallingford, New Haven. Let me get this out of the way. And then Henry Hotchkiss. So you can see they've been in he's from Wallingford, Haven County. And now we're back from before Connecticut was a colony. So it was an early settlement. And even his wife, Sarah Benham, she's also born in Connecticut in 1712. So they're both very old family in that area. As I started going back, I noticed that there was one guy here. In his name, it says Sheriff John Hotchkiss, and he's there in 1643, New Haven settlement. He was born in New Haven, so he had gone back. Now, usually this is kind of as far back as I can go, and I try to go back to the person who came to the New World. And I still hadn't got there by this time. And it turns out that that John Hotchkiss's parents, his father, if I go do this and put him at the middle, Samuel. I think Samuel is the one who came. Yes, he's born in Essex, England, and he died in New Haven, Connecticut. So he's the one who came over from England to the New World. But you can see the family tree kind of dies out here, and that line of ancestry, and which was very common. And so I kind of gave up on that line and went back to Schofield. And I'll put Mary Jane back in the center. So the other line I went down was the Sellecks. So Mary Jane Schofield, her grandfather was Peter Selleck Schofield, and his mom was Mary Selleck. And as I started to go back through the Selleck family, they also had been in America for a very long time. Sorry. From before it was a colony. And one of the things I noticed was one of the very early people had another title in his name, Captain. So let's go to him, Captain John Selleck. And I really like when they put a little bit of information. So many of the people that you go through, and as you're looking through these, you have a birth date and place, a death date and place, and maybe when they got married. But there's usually not very much information other than that. In this case, this Captain John Selleck, there's actually an article about him, and it says that in his death, that he actually died at sea. His ship was captured by French and never returned. And he never returned, which is kind of sad. But it turned out that his dad and his mother were both from England, and Captain John was born in Boston, in the Massachusetts Bay settlement. So I found him very interesting, and we're back now to 1643. So if we go back to looking at it in the tree, you'll see that when I get back a couple generations from Captain John, I start to run into, instead of sort of petering out and not being able to find out information about dates, all of a sudden, at this generation back in the 1500s, I have parents, lots of parents. And it turns out that these people, I start to see titles too. Let me pull up Elizabeth Blake. And these, you see a lot of articles where they tell about their life story and their family. And I noticed that this is the first person where I started to see that her parents, her father here is John the Elder, Lord of Plainfield Manor. He has a title. and her mother is the Duchess of Somerset, Rawson. So from a genealogy point of view, this is really good because nobody cares about genealogy and ancestry and pedigree more than people who have title, who are sort of royalty. So I found this very interesting and decided to go down that line. So if I go back to Captain John Selleck and start to go back out, and then here's the Duchess and John the Elder. Then there's Littleton, and I noticed Sir William, and I thought this was really interesting. Of course, being a William and seeing Sir William, this person was actually knighted. So he now we're back that he was born in 1449 in Franklin, Worcestershire, England, and it didn't have a lot of information about it. I think in this article it talks about why he was knighted. And I don't, oh, right here. Eldest son of John Littleton. He succeeded to his father's estates and was knighted after the Battle of Stoke. So he was knighted because of heroism or performance in battle, which is, of course, very interesting. Usually when you go back this far, it's really hard to find information about their lives or livelihood or what people had done. So the other thing was there's a couple other knights here on the Blake side. Oh, and this one, Robert DeCane Blake. He's the first one where I had actually seen a crest. And you can see there's also articles now about this guy where there's a lot of information about his family and his history. And it turns out that his father, Sir Henry, or his son, was also knighted, Sir Peter Blake, and his mother was a Lady Margaret, and his father was also knighted. So now we're starting to get into several of these where they were knighted, and you start to see a lot of citations and articles. Yeah, and his mother, Lady Billet, she was the daughter of this woman, Eleanor Ormond, Duchess of Gloucester. So, and now this is the first one where I've seen with like a Duchess title. So she's very interesting and has several articles in here, but most of the articles in here were basically who she was related to, her management of estates, and relatives and citations, things like that. Her father, I think it was her father. Yes, her father was Humphrey, the 7th Earl of Hereford, Devon, KG. Now that was interesting. That was the first time I had seen that in somebody's title. Was that her father? Yes. Her father was Sir William. He was also knighted, of Northampton Bond, 1st Earl of Northampton, KG. And KG refers to, down here, Knight of the Garter. And at first I thought that had to do with keeping your stockings up, but it turns out that Knight of the Garter is a noble order, and it's the highest level of chivalry founded by King Edward III in 1348. So bottom line, that's a big deal. Also, I noticed in here that in these citations, there was a lot of earls and castles and things like that mentioned, which made me think, wow, this is really getting interesting. And then I came up here and looked at his father, thinking it would be another knight or something, and then I noticed his mother. And his mother was Elizabeth Plantagenet, Princess of England, and has a lot of citations also. And and a lot of these over here on the right, you can see these source citations, which were really big. And as I was kind of looking through them, it occurred to me that if she's a princess of England, then who's her daddy? And her daddy is Edward I, Longshanks, the King of England. This is, if you ever saw the movie William Wallace, the bad guy in the movie, the mean king of England, this is him, Edward I, Longshanks, because he was very tall for the time. I think they said he was 6'2". Also known as Hammer of the Scots, based on the wars that he had with the Scottish who were trying to get away, which was what was going on in William Wallace. And now, as we're in this royal family tree, you can go in here to Wikipedia. Now that, I mean, Edward's father was a king, and his brother was a king. So the family, they call it the House of Plantagenet, of which Edward is down here, Edward Longshanks. But they are also related to the houses of Normandy, and back up here through William the Conqueror, and you can kind of go through these, who's related to who and who's married to who and where did they come from. And now there's a lot more information on all these people, things they did, a lot of very interesting reading going on in here. So that's where I will leave you. And I don't know about his lazy eye. They kind of drew that, it looks like on purpose, but that's where we go today. Have a great day, everyone.